Okay, so think about this. What if there was a plant, right, with something like over 60,000 uses?
60,000. Wow.
Yeah, capable of, well, potentially healing serious diseases, replacing some chemical medicines, even helping clean up the environment.
Okay. Sounds pretty incredible.
It does. But here's the thing, it's been largely illegal for almost 100 years. And the reasons, they don't always seem to make a lot of sense.
Hmm.
So today we're doing a deep dive into cannabis. And we really want to get past that common idea that it's, just for getting high.
Right. Like that's its only purpose.
Exactly. It's like saying water is only good for putting out fires. It just doesn't capture the whole picture.
No, not at all. And the source material we've looked at, it really paints this fascinating picture of the plant, its history, its just amazing versatility, and yeah, the really surprising, sometimes confusing story behind its legal status.
So that's our goal then.
Yeah, exactly. For this deep dive, we want to pull out the key insights, give you a really solid understanding of this plant that honestly is still pretty misunderstood by a lot of people.
Okay, so we've kind of set the stage, this huge potential. But maybe before we get into what it can do, let's just quickly clarify what it actually is.
Good idea.
Because we hear cannabis used all the time, but biologically, it's a bit more complex than just one thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. When we talk cannabis, we're mainly looking at three species:
Yeah.
sativa, indica, and ruderalis.
Okay.
And it's really important to separate out industrial hemp. That usually comes from the sativa type.
Right. Hemp, we hear that word a lot too.
And what's really clear from our research is that hemp's usability is, well, it's almost unlike anything else. People have been using it for literally thousands of years.
Just looking at hemp on its own, the applications are kind of mind-blowing.
They really are.
Our sources talk about using it for oil, not just for cooking, but potentially fuel too.
Yeah, biofuel.
And the seeds, they're described as like one of the most nutritional seeds on the planet,
Packed with nutrients.
supplying nearly every mineral and vitamin the body needs. Imagine that, just as a basic food source.
And the benefits go way beyond just, food and simple industrial stuff. The environmental side of hemp and its potential in industry, that's really compelling.
Like what specifically?
Well, take clothing. Growing hemp for fiber apparently takes about half the water cotton needs.
Half the water. Wow.
And get this, no chemicals or fertilizers needed either.
Okay, that's a big deal environmentally.
Huge. And in construction, it can be used for things like housing insulation, fiber boards.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe one of the coolest things is this ability called phytoremediation.
Phytoremediation, what's that?
It's basically how hemp can pull toxins, even radiation and contamination, out of water and soil. It cleans it up.
You're kidding, it actually cleans the ground.
Yeah, actively cleans it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Did the sources give any, like, real-world examples?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The most striking one was its use in the fields around Chernobyl.
Chernobyl, the nuclear disaster site.
The very one. They used hemp there to remove heavy metals and radiation from the soil.
Wow.
And scientists even found that the hemp used for cleanup could then potentially be converted into biodiesel.
No way. So it cleans up radiation and then becomes fuel.
Exactly. Turning a cleanup into a potential energy source. They apparently considered it for Fukushima, too, after that disaster.
What? Oh.
But Japan has really strict cannabis laws, so it couldn't be used there.
Just think about the potential impact. If that cleanup ability was used more widely, it really makes you stop and think.
It really does.
And it doesn't stop there, right?
Yeah.
It could change how we make everyday things like paper and plastic.
Definitely.
We found this reference to a study from way back 1916.
Okay.
It suggested that 1 acre of hemp over 20 years could produce maybe 4 to 10 times more paper than trees on the same land.
4 to 10 times.
Yeah. But today, less than like 0.1% of paper is hemp-based.
That seems crazy low, especially when you think about deforestation. How many trees are cut down for paper every year?
Billions. About 4 billion trees annually. Hemp could make a real dent in that.
It really raises the question, why aren't we using it more? And our research also talked about hemp plastic.
Right, I saw that. Biodegradable.
Completely biodegradable, yeah, which could massively cut down on pollution, especially in the oceans, harm to marine life.
And making it is cleaner, too.
Seems so. It can be produced with very few chemicals, or maybe even none, unlike, most plastics we use now.
So what's the catch? Why isn't everything made of hemp?
Well, the counter-argument you hear is that currently producing hemp on a large scale can be costly and time-consuming. setting up the infrastructure.
Okay, fair enough.
But the point made in our sources is pretty strong.
Yeah.
Cheaper isn't always best, especially when you factor in the long-term environmental cost of not using it.
Right. The overall impact seems like it would be, as the source said, more than justifiable. Okay, so we've covered the industrial side, this sort of powerhouse plant. But let's shift gears now to the medical frontier.
Yes, this is where things get really interesting, too.
Because this is where a lot of the maybe surprising stuff comes in. Scientists have found hundreds of different chemical compounds in cannabis.
Hundreds. Yeah.
But the ones getting the most attention are about 80 compounds called cannabinoids.
Cannabinoids, that's right. They're a unique class of compounds. They interact with our body's own endocannabinoid system.
Which affects things like mood and pain.
Mood, pain perception, appetite, memory, a whole range of things. But yeah, even though there are about 80 known cannabinoids, most research is really only focused on a few so far.
And which ones did our sources highlight?
Well, the big one everyone knows is delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, THC.
Right, the one that causes the high.
Exactly. It's the most studied. When cannabis is heated, like through smoking or vaping, THC changes chemically. It decarboxylates. And then it binds to receptors in our central nervous system and immune system, causing those psychoactive effects.
But medically, what's the potential there?
Medically, it's being looked at as a muscle relaxant, an anti-inflammatory, even an antidepressant. And often, the studies suggest, with fewer side effects than some conventional drugs.
What kinds of conditions are we talking about?
It's being studied for quite a range. Things like anxiety, helping with the side effects of chemotherapy, possibly reducing cancer growth,
Wow.
Crohn's disease, chronic pain, insomnia, even multiple sclerosis. It's a long list.
And you mentioned THCA earlier. That's different.
Right, THCA. That's tetrahydrocannabinolic acid. It's basically the raw, unheated form of THC.
So not psychoactive.
No, because it hasn't gone through that heating process, that decarboxylation. So you could say juice the raw plant leaves.
Juice cannabis?
Yeah, and get some potential medical properties without any high. It's still in the early stages of research, but it's thought to be a potent anti-inflammatory.
Interesting. And what about CBD? We hear a lot about that too.
Cannabidiol, yeah. CBD, that's another major one. Non-psychoactive again. And it's shown promise in studies related to anxiety, nausea, even things like acne, schizophrenia, and various neurodegenerative diseases.
It really does sound like it could revolutionize aspects of medicine. But you mentioned the research is still developing.
Yes, that's a crucial point from the sources.
What are the main limitations or things listeners should maybe keep in mind?
Well, the big one is time. Truth be told, these studies just haven't gone on long enough for us to really know the full range of benefits or potential long-term effects that cannabis might have.
Right. The understanding is still very much evolving.
Definitely.
Which I guess brings us right back to the central puzzle of this whole deep dive.
Which is?
If you have thousands of industrial uses, all this potential medical benefit, why on earth would something like this be illegal?
Yeah, it's the big question.
It just can't only be because of the high, can it? I mean, if that was the only reason, how do we justify alcohol being legal? Or tobacco?
Which are linked to millions of deaths.
Exactly. Or even things like refined sugar, which causes so many health problems today. It doesn't quite add up logically.
No, it doesn't. And it's a question that's been really muddied by confusion and, frankly, quite a bit of false information over the years.
So what did the sources say? What are the theories behind the prohibition?
Our source material really digs into three main historical arguments or theories that usually come up.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, there's the story focusing on Harry Anslinger.
Anslinger. He was head of prohibition in the U.S.
That's right, head of the U.S. Department of Prohibition. This was back in 1929. So when alcohol prohibition ended, his department was basically facing, well, being shut down.
Ah, okay. Job security issue.
Potentially. The theory goes that he essentially needed a new target, a new substance to demonize.
And cannabis was it?
According to this theory, yes. He allegedly created this narrative that cannabis was a devil drug, something that turned men into wild beasts who would, quote, attack women.
Seriously, did anyone buy that?
Well, the story also includes the detail that he supposedly contacted 30 scientists about the dangers of marijuana.
Yeah.
And 29 out of 30 apparently found no valid proofs that it was dangerous. But he pushed the narrative anyway.
Wow. Okay, so that's theory one. Bureaucratic self-preservation and fear-mongering. What's next?
The second theory connects it to Mexican immigration into the U.S., particularly in the early 1900s.
How so?
Well, many Mexican immigrants brought marijuana with them. They used it traditionally as medicine or just for relaxation.
Okay.
And the argument is this made it a convenient target. It became, quote, the perfect drug to criminalize and label dangerous.
Why perfect?
It allegedly provided an excuse, a pretext, to search, detain, and even deport these immigrants, linking the drug to a specific marginalized group.
Okay. So social prejudice and control potentially playing a role. And the third theory.
This one points towards industrial and corporate interests, specifically major companies like DuPont.
DuPont, the
Yeah.
chemical company.
Yes. The theory suggests they feared hemp. Remember all those industrial uses we talked about?
Yeah, paper, plastics, fiber.
Exactly. Especially as a potential alternative to nylon. DuPont invented and patented nylon right around the same time that the major cannabis laws, like the Marijuana Tax Act, were being put into place in the U.S. in the late 1930s.
So competition.
That's the idea. That it was profitable for companies like DuPont to back the government's campaign, to help push the narrative that cannabis was just a dangerous drug people used to get high.
When really the motive might have been to ban hemp to protect their market for nylon and other synthetics.
That's the core of that theory. Keep hemp out of the competition.
So it sounds like it could have been a mix of things. Maybe economic motives, maybe social fears, maybe that Anslinger figure pushing his own agenda.
It's hard to say for sure, isn't it? Proving the exact reasons definitively is tough because, authentic records fully detailing those motives might not exist or be clear. But our sources suggest it was likely one, or maybe some combination, of those factors that led the U.S. to effectively ban cannabis. And then many other countries just sort of followed that lead.
And looking at it now from the perspective of those big industries.
Well, even if you take that DuPont theory as, completely factual, reversing course now is really difficult for those established industries.
Why is that?
Because once hemp production was essentially made illegal or heavily restricted, all the manufacturing processes, the equipment, the infrastructure, it all ground to a halt.
For no innovation.
Right. No new technology was really developed or invested in to advance hemp processing and production for decades. So for a big company now, deeply invested in other materials and processes, switching over to hemp would be, well, very costly, a massive undertaking.
So the legacy of the ban continues to affect things, even if attitudes are changing.
Absolutely. But now, nearly 100 years later, things are shifting. It's becoming less frowned upon, less stigmatized.
And science is catching up.
Exactly. Doctors and researchers are finally starting to really look at it again and realize just how potentially powerful this plant might be.
So wrapping this up then, what's the main takeaway here? We've looked at this plant with, like you said, thousands of uses. Very little negative impact on the planet itself.
Right.
Yet its research, its industrial use, it's all been massively stunted by laws, mostly focused on just one of its many, many effects. It feels like a huge paradox.
It really is a profound paradox.
Yeah.
And just to be really clear for everyone listening, this deep dive isn't meant as an endorsement of just, going out and using cannabis recreationally.
Right. Important distinction.
Especially not for young people whose brains are still developing, or for anyone maybe struggling with life problems. Smoking it can cause social issues, life problems, and the effects, particularly on a young, developing brain. Research suggests potential harm there.
That's crucial context.
And it's vital to understand that medical cannabis and recreational cannabis can be vastly different things.
Well,
different compounds, different doses, different purposes.
and the science is still ongoing.
Exactly. The potential for long-term side effects, depending on how it's used, what type is used, that's all still actively being researched. We don't have all the answers yet.
Absolutely. So you certainly shouldn't think, okay, great, I'll go smoke weed for my health now. That's not the message.
Not at all.
The reality is, people using cannabis for specific medical benefits usually aren't looking to get high. They often need only a very small, targeted amount of certain compounds.
Often an amount that wouldn't have any significant mind-altering effects at all.
Right. But that small amount still seems, based on the research we're seeing, to potentially help relieve or even prevent a lot of different illnesses.
It does seem that way, yes.
So it really just leaves you wondering, doesn't it? How different might things be today? Our industries, our environment, our medicine, if the full potential of this incredibly versatile plant had actually been explored and maybe even embraced without nearly a century of legal roadblocks.